You were mentioning rote counting. Is that where we get started?
Yes, that's really where it all begins. If you can't rote count, and that's just counting like 1 to 5, 1 to 10, 1 to 20 correctly, then you've got problems going any further than that. So one example that I did with my grandchildren that I think is a good idea is if you have steps, instead of counting all 19 steps that we had, we counted 1, 2, 3. And we just kept counting 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, all the way down the steps. And then once I felt like she could really, kind of grasp that, we would go to 5.
Yes.
And so, and just build on that rote counting. Now, she recently we were going to 5, and then, sometimes they just have trouble with saying 1. They always, you say 1, and instead of saying 1, they say 2. So she would say 2, 3, 5. And so I knew we were getting somewhere, but just recently, after much more input, and that's the key for me is input. Instead of expecting them, okay, now count these fingers, you count them. You count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So the key here to rote counting, in my view, is you count all the time. They get in the car, and if you're on 5, you're going to be a little bit ahead of them. Okay, so if they can count to 3 accurately, you're counting to 5. If they can count to 5 accurately, then you're counting to 10. You're always a little, 1 or 2 steps ahead of them. It's really important for developmentally challenged kiddos, is just to keep a little bit ahead of them, but and just bring them along.
Exactly.
Right, not too far ahead. That's the key. And then, so you can do things like when you're buckling them into their seatbelt, you can just say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then when you get them out, you might say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and just change it up so it's a little more intense. That's another neurodevelopmental tip, that the intensity can help with that. When you sit down to dinner, you can count and basically just count often to get that rote counting. Now, one thing that follows that very quickly is, and helps with the rote counting, is counting objects. So that can aid, like I was saying, counting the fingers, counting their toes, pressing on each toe and count on the toe. Count animals when they're in the bathtub, or whatever toys you have in the bathtub. And so just count. Now, one resource that we have that I developed a long time ago is called an audio. It's like a recording. Of course, we used to call it a CD, but now CDs are going out, so we're using the download. And our CD is pretty unique, because it's for beginners up through advanced counters. And so what I mean by that is the first track will be 1 to 5. And it just says 1 to 5 over and over for about a minute. And so there's a lot of frequency there, and different voices, and echoing different sound effects, but it's not music. Now, can you guess why I don't put it to music?
I would think that it would just all become one thing if a child wasn't separating those steps out.
It's kind of like the alphabet and the LMNOP.
Right, and then you have to sing the whole song to figure out where you're at.
Exactly.
Instead of, just going
into so it's not terrible to put things in with music, but we believe, as a neurodevelopmental approach, is that if you put it to music, it goes in your subdominant hemisphere, where your music is. And then you have to sing the whole song to get it out. So we want it to go into the dominant hemisphere, so that it just comes out, where if you start at 1, you can count to 10, or if you start at 6, you can count to 10. Or anywhere in between. that make sense?
Yes, because you can catch it wherever you want to start
Right.
it. Got it.
So with this, you again it's one way that you can stay one step ahead of the kids by the first one is 1 to 5, and then when they've got that, it's 1 to 10, then 1 to 15, because the teens are the hardest for most kids, especially that 14, 15 area. So 1 to 15, then 1 to 20. Okay. Then after that, it goes up by tens, 1 to 30, 1 to 40, on up. And then we give them experience even past 100 to 300. And then when I was telling you about the advanced counting, what we want to do is help to establish patterns of counting. And so we might have a 4-digit number series where they're counting 4,526, 4,527, and that kind of thing, so that they hear those patterns. We don't count to 4,000, but we give them
but you have to say them.
Yes. Right. So we give them this little window of numbers so they can hear the pattern of a 5-digit number or a 4-digit number or 3-digit number.